Hey everybody, welcome to today's Love Nest. We have an amazing episode planned out for you guys. I am just here one-on-one with my good friend Tresa, and she's gonna introduce her channel before I say too much.
Well, I am Tresa from ReeseDixon.com. My YouTube channel is ReeseDixon. And I'm just thrilled to be part of the Moms You Moms.
She's one of our maker moms, and you have a blog as well.
Yeah,
you do
ReeseDixon.com. Yeah,
she's the big deal in the blog world. So go check out her blog. She's pretty amazing. Well, we were just on one of the Moms Live View episodes. I don't know when this is going to upload in correlation with that, but it was our first experience on the Moms View Live, which was so exciting. And we were sitting in the room reading comments together, and we noticed one of the comments out there said, Teresa's had, we love that she's on the Moms View because you haven't had this same type of childhood that we had. It wasn't all hearts and flowers. You kind of had a rough, difficult experience, and how great you've turned your life around and you're a successful mom and married and happy and beautiful and doing wonderful. And you didn't let that hold you back. So I think that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, I love it.
Right?
That's kind of what I've built my whole online life around. That's kind of my message, is like, you are not in control of the circumstances that life gives you, but we all have this power in us of creativity that we can harness to make ourselves the life that we want. And so, yeah, it's funny when I was doing the Moms View, it's like, oh, every question that comes up, here's how I'm different.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
here's how
shoot.
this doesn't apply to me. I mean, I think it's all hilarious because I have a very dark sense of humor, but maybe not everybody agrees with me. But I do. I think it's kind of funny because, and I can say that it's funny now because I have a great life, a great family. I have the most wonderful little boy. I've worked so hard to get healthy and happy and make the life I want for myself. And I really do believe that anybody can do that.
So tell us, what was your childhood like? I mean, I know it was different, and you said it's from a dark place. You feel comfortable sharing that, or?
Absolutely. I'm an open book, sister.
I love it. We keep
Brace
it real.
yourself. Watch your toes, because I'm going to be dropping some real stuff on you.
Like, here we go.
I am the middle child of 5 siblings that have the same parents. There's halves and steps and a whole world of other things going on. And we basically moved every year of my life. I really don't feel like I have a hometown. We just moved constantly.
Which can be really difficult.
It was very difficult. And that really kind of fed into the fact that my parents were abusive. I was really spiritual, because we grew up religious. I was spiritually, emotionally, and physically abused. And then in my life, I've also been sexually abused. And moving around so often made it so that nobody could really get too close to us and see what was going on. Nobody could really step in. We could keep our secrets, you know? And so even now, I'm the only one of my siblings who identifies as an abuse survivor, who is public about it, who calls it out for what it was, because there can be some real consequences for addressing this. There's a lot of health and happiness, but you kind of have to go through some ugliness first. And so that can be really hard to deal with. And my siblings haven't done that. They just kind of justified it, and they'll say like, well, things shouldn't have happened, or yeah, that was kind of wrong, but...
So you still have contact with your siblings?
There's 2 of my siblings that I talk to, and but I haven't spoken to my parents in 14 years. They've never seen my son. They probably never will.
Are they? I mean, and I don't really necessarily blame you for that. Have you ever wanted to reach out to them and say, I survived, or what you did was wrong?
What happened was, when I first got married, well, first of all, I never imagined getting married. I never imagined having kids, because I had internalized so much shame from how I was treated my whole life. That when that is how people are treating you, you can't think that you're anything better than that. You can't think that that's not normal.
Like, you start to be what your surroundings are and what people are influencing.
And you were told in word and in action that you have earned this, that this is your problem. And so I just couldn't imagine being in a good relationship. I thought I was so damaged that I was going to hurt anyone who was close to me. So I never was the type that was like, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have babies. That was just like, no, I'm going to go and live on an island and save the world from myself because I am so dark and damaged.
And now look at you, this ray of light, so beautiful.
You're so sweet.
So did you, I mean, when you were going through like the coping and were there ever moments of anger where you wanted to like lash out at them? Because I would be like wanting
so much anger. I would throw things against the wall and just like shatter glass. And so I was saying how I met my husband and we were going to get married, and that led me to really take some things seriously. And I got therapy. And like, I feel like everybody on the planet needs therapy. Like,
I need some.
Everybody needs therapy. It is a gift. Everybody needs therapy. And so I took it really seriously, and I got the tools that I needed. And that gave me the strength. Well, what ended up happening is I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me. And so when I was in college, she was still living at home. And when I started going to therapy, the therapist said, I'm concerned that your sister is still at risk for this kind of abuse.
Right.
And by law, this has to be reported.
Yeah.
And so it shouldn't work this way, but what ended up happening is I ended up calling the police myself and turned my own parents into the police.
Wow, was that so difficult for you?
Gosh, girl, it was a nightmare.
Because were you afraid they would come back after you?
And they did. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was a nightmare. But in another way, it was also incredibly validating because here I am, this abused child, and I'm told my whole life, you're just melodramatic. You just can't take a joke. This is all you. You're just such a drama queen. And then I have these law enforcement professionals. I have social workers. I have police officers. I have like all these people who see the ugliest that life has to offer. And they are taking me seriously.
And how nice is to feel like somebody finally had your back?
Yeah, totally.
So refreshing.
So while I don't think that everybody should have to turn their own parents in, because that was incredibly traumatic, but it did end up being really validating for me to see like all of these people who know what they're looking at said, yeah, that is screwed up. That is wrong. And I just went, I knew it.
Finally, I knew I wasn't wrong.
I knew it wasn't just me.
Bless your heart. So I'm curious, did your sister, was she helped? Did she get the help she needed?
Yeah. They went to the home, and what ended up happening is we joke in that dark sense of humor that I have that my parents never really had so much a marriage as a 25-year-long divorce.
Wow.
And so once the Child Protective Services came to the home, it was kind of the final catalyst they needed.
Yeah.
The divorce was completed, and once my father was no longer living in the house, they determined that my youngest sister wasn't in immediate danger, and so it wasn't the crisis that it was at the moment.
So do you feel like your dad maybe initiated that and then your mom started being like that because she was around him for so long? Or
I feel like they were both just really damaged people. I guarantee you they have severe mental illnesses that they have never addressed. And they really did feed off of each other. And my mom would kind of instigate things with my dad, and then he would instigate it was just like this really, really toxic
I can't imagine.
relationship they had.
Right. So, when thinking of abusive relationships and, being sexually abused, what are some, I guess some tips or some signs? Can we talk about that? Like, what are some things for you to give the viewers advice to, what are some warning signs that we can look for? Let's start there.
Well, first, I would address kids who are in danger. And unfortunately, you're dependent on your parents. And so if they're the ones that are hurting you, it can feel like there's no resources for you, but there absolutely are. You can reach out to teachers, you can reach out to doctors, teachers, doctors, anyone who works in law enforcement, firefighters, therapists, they are all by law required to help a kid in danger. And so if there is somebody hurting you, there's so many adults that you can trust that will help you.
And back in your shoes when you were younger, were you afraid to reach out to these people because you thought they were going to come back and tell your parents?
I absolutely was. I was terrified. And that honestly happened so often with abusers. Like my parents actively told us, don't tell your teachers that we spank. They wouldn't get it. And they would tell us things like, Child Protective Services will just snatch people's kids from them. And of course it's all to protect them, to protect the abusers. But none of that is true. Like, Child Protective Services has so many programs that exist parent training, parent counseling, family counseling that exist way before you ever start talking about the foster system. And even in that, it's only in cases where there is a genuine threat, where there is a hurt. And it's not enough to just accuse. Like they will come to the home and have to find evidence. So you don't need to be afraid that like, oh, well, like in my case, when I was told over and over again that you're just being a drama queen, the problem is you, and I so believed that. And when I did go to the authorities and they took me seriously, my first thought was, did I explain it right?
Yeah.
Maybe I told the story too big, you know?
Yeah,
maybe
to hear someone else say it, you're like, oh, it's not as bad as it sounds, but people are like, yes,
it is.
It's really bad.
And so it can be really scary to present that to somebody and think that they'll understand that you can still love your parents. Your parents can still, they're your parents. You'll love them, you know? I still desperately want to love my parents, even after everything we've been through. But it's about your safety and it's about the rest of your life. And so don't be afraid to seek out help, because they're not just gonna snatch you. They're not just gonna put your parents in jail or
show
whatever.
up at your house that night unless there's a direct threat, you said.
Exactly.
Aren't they, like, by law required, like, if you tell them something, or maybe that's just a counselor, they can't really, without your permission, right?
It's therapists that have that rule. And the laws do differ state by state, but what we've shared is pretty much universal, at least in the U.S. But there are resources that the kids just do not need to be afraid of. You know, it's not like either you take the abuse or your parents go to jail. Like there is so much in between that can happen. And somebody can, by reaching out for help, like save your whole family, like by getting the parents help that they need. Because a lot of the times when somebody is an abuser, it's not because they're a bad person. It's because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skills. Or like in the case of my parents, I do believe that they were mentally ill. And so maybe they need some help.
Pills, something.
They need a therapist. They need somebody to teach them how to parent constructively. And so reaching out for help can be a way of not just ensuring your own safety, but saving your whole family and having healthy relationships going forward.
And their parents, your grandparents, I mean, were they, sometimes it's out of, like what you know, that's maybe, was that how they were raised?
I know in my mom's case, it totally was. I don't know in my dad's case. But yeah, my mom has told stories of growing up in Inglewood here in California and just in intense poverty and having some horrible experiences. So I think it was just like this repeated pattern. And that's how I feel when I turned my parents into the cops. I had to pay some really harsh personal consequences for that. But by being the family whistleblower, I watched everyone else in my family get healthy, get help, like have better relationships together.
And for you to break that cycle, I mean, that you were probably the first person to do something to change that. And think you probably, you know, you saved your sister and your family, like you said, and what an amazing thing to be able to say you did that.
That's what helps me when I'm just really feeling lonely, that I don't have my parents in my life. That's like what I tell myself. Okay, good.
I'll try.
we'll
have girl
be
time,
sisters,
right? Yes. You were saying, sorry, so when you're feeling lonely, you hold on to that thought, right?
Yeah, that's what I tell myself, is that I gave everybody safety. And even when the sisters that I don't talk to, when we fight and don't see things the same way, I just tell myself, you know, okay, maybe right now we can't have a relationship, but I gave them this gift.
So wait, were your siblings upset with you because you told your parents, you got the cops involved? So but weren't your siblings were upset with your parents about this, right? They all felt they were being mistreated as well?
Well, and that's often how it happens when you're dealing with people who have been abused, is there's this total divided loyalty, because you want to take care of yourself, and yet this is the way you were raised, and these are the parents that you love. I mean, every child loves their parents, you know? And so on the one hand, they were like, yeah, do this. They were encouraging me, but then once the consequences started to roll in, they were like, oh, wait, no, never mind,
I don't want to deal with this.
And
maybe they weren't ready to be like, you know, witnesses or to give their testimonies, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that'd be so difficult.
It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
But you're stronger and you were here.
I'm a tough chick.
Right. I agree 100%. So, okay, we've warning signs. What about your coping? I mean, obviously the therapy, were there other things when you were out of therapy that you do now that, you know, you hang on to certain thoughts, or, you know, that you can give advice on?
Well, therapy, again, I mean, I really cannot overemphasize that, because a lot of people think like, I'm strong, I can gut through it, but you don't even realize the thought patterns that you have. That the tools that I've gained in therapy have taught me, oh, hold up, that's my dad's voice I'm hearing.
Oh, wow.
Like, wait a second, that's something my mom told me, like not how I really feel.
How refreshing to get all those little inner voices that we all have inside of our heads, and just to be able to separate the good from the bad. It's like the angel and the devil.
Exactly.
Right?
And everybody has their parents' voice in their head. Like, however you were raised, you know, you hear your mom, you know, telling you whatever.
Or it'll come out of your mouth, you're like, I just said something
sounded like my mom.
Yeah.
And so therapy and the tools that I learned in therapy really helped me to examine those thoughts and let go of the ones that were hurting me and let go of the harmful ones. And especially like when I've worked with abuse survivors, a lot of times people will say like, I wish that I had had broken bones. Or I just wish they'd put me in the hospital, because then I would just know. Like, and what I've learned is that they're like, no matter what kind of abuse you've gone through, because it is so hard to deal with, and your abuser will always try to convince you that it's your fault, you've earned it, it's not as bad as you think it is. No matter what happens, people always try to like push that line, you know? So even if you had broken bones or you were put in the hospital, they'll be like, well, I was never raped, so it's not that bad, you know? Everybody tries to justify whatever their experience is, and it's totally human. Every abuse survivor does it. And that's one reason why, as public as I am, I really don't share like the specifics of exactly what happened, because I don't want people to be able to say, well, I didn't have it that bad, so it doesn't count, because it totally counts. And what I have experienced is, even with all of the sexual and physical abuse I've experienced in my life, what has been the hardest to get over, what has been the most devastating to me personally, is the emotional abuse.
I agree.
It's totally the emotional abuse. And that's the stuff that therapy has really helped, because when I left home at 16, and from that point on, I wasn't in danger. They couldn't physically hurt me anymore. But all of those teachings that I had had for my whole life, everything that they had taught me to think about myself, was still with me. Those thoughts were still repeating in my head. And so now when I hear of that little thought in my head saying, you know, you're being too dramatic, or you're so dumb, or, you know, whatever, I get to say, no, I'm not. That's not me. I don't think that about myself. I know that's not true. I know I'm smart. I know I'm good.
It's like the emotional lashings that you still carry around. I've had a little bit of experience, you know, and I don't want to share specifics or play a sob story, but I agree the hardest thing for me to get over is like broken arm or a bruise here or there or whatever. I mean, not saying, they heal, but it's the emotional things that you start to hear. You're too insecure, you're not this, Those are the things that you wear on your heart, and that's so much harder to get over than a bruise or whatever. So I agree,
because those things can really go unexamined, because we're really not taught to examine those thoughts. You know, unless you do go through therapy, like I've been, you know, preaching, we're not taught to like examine those thoughts. So our body knows how to heal, but our hearts don't always. And so we really do have to learn how to get those thoughts out of us and reinforce the things that we know about ourselves to be good, and undo some of that damage. But it absolutely can be undone. I am living testament to that.
She is a living proof. You are so wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's so much fun.
Yes, if you guys want, or if you guys are in a spot or in a situation where you feel like this episode relates to you, please go check out Tresa's channel. She has wonderful advice. You've done videos and blog posts about this as well, right? And I mean, I'm urging and begging and pleading with you, if you need help, reach out like she has mentioned. If you're in a spot where it's dangerous, please contact somebody. We would hate to see
there are hotlines. There is research. I'm sure we'll get some put in the comments.
We'll leave some definitely in the link in the information bar below. But thank you for being on the Love Nest. We love you guys. I hope this Love Nest helped you guys. If any of you, like I said, praying for you. If you need the help, go get it. You deserve it. I love you, and we'll see you next time on the Love Nest. Bye everybody.